32. Circle 9, Cocytus, compound fraud. Round 1, Caina, the treacherous to kin. Round 2, Antenora, the treacherous to country. At the bottom of the well, Dante finds himself on a huge frozen lake. This is Cocytus, the ninth circle, the fourth and last great water of hell. And here, fixed in the ice, each according to his guilt, are punished sinners guilty of treachery against those to whom they were bound by special ties. The ice is divided into 4 concentric rings marked only by the different positions of the damned within the ice. This is Dante's symbolic equivalent of the final guilt. The treacheries of these souls were denials of love, which is God, and of all human warmth. Only the remorseless dead center of the ice will serve to express their natures. As they denied God's love, so are they furthest removed from the light and warmth of his Son. As they denied all human ties, so are they bound only by the unyielding ice. The first round is Caina, named for Cain. Here lie those who are treacherous against blood ties. They have their necks and heads out of the ice, and are permitted to bow their heads, a double boon, since it allows them some protection from the freezing gale, and further allows their tears to fall without freezing their eyes shut. Here Dante sees Alessandro and Napoleon degli Alberti, and he speaks to Commission, who identifies other sinners of this round. The second round is Antenora, named for Antenor, the Trojan who was believed to have betrayed his city to the Greeks. Here lie those guilty of treachery to country. They too have their heads above the ice, but they cannot bend their necks, which are gripped by the ice. Here Dante accidentally kicks the head of Bocca degli Abati, and then proceeds to treat him with a savagery he has shown to no other soul in hell. Bocca names some of his fellow traitors, and the poets pass on to discover 2 heads frozen together in one hole. One of them is gnawing the nape of the other's neck. If I had rhymes as harsh and horrible as the hard fact of that final dismal hole, which bears the weight of all the steeps of hell, I might more fully press the sap and substance from my conception, but since I must do without them, I begin with some reluctance. For it is no easy undertaking, I say, to describe the bottom of the universe, nor is it for tongues that only babble child's play. But may those ladies of the heavenly spring who helped Amphion wall Thebes assist my verse, that the word may be the mirror of the thing. O most miscreant rabble, you who keep the stations of that place whose name is pain, better had you been born as goats or sheep. We stood now in the dark pit of the well, far down the slope below the giant's feet, and while I still stared up at the great wall, I heard a voice cry, "Watch which way you turn! Take care you do not trample on the heads of the forewarned and miserable brethren." Whereat I turned, and saw beneath my feet, and stretching out ahead, a lake so frozen it seemed to me made of glass. So thick a sheet never yet hid the Danube's winter course, nor far away beneath the frigid sky locked the dawn up in its frozen source. For were Tenbernick and the enormous peak of Petrapana to crash down on it, not even the edges would so much as creak, the way frogs sit to croak, their muzzles leaning out of the water, at the time and season when the peasant woman dreams of her day's gleaning. Just so the livid dead are sealed in place, up to the part at which they blushed for shame, and they beat their teeth like storks. Each holds his face bowed toward the ice. Each of them testifies to the cold with his chattering mouth, to his heart's grief, with tears that fled forever from his eyes. When I had stared about me, I looked down, and at my feet I saw 2 clamped together so tightly that the hair of their heads had grown together. "Who are you," I said, "who lies so tightly breast to breast?" They strained their necks, and when they had raised their heads as if to reply, the tears their eyes had managed to contain up to that time gushed out, and the cold froze them between the lids, sealing them shut again. Tighter than any clamp grips wood to wood, and mad with pain, they fell to butting heads like billy goats in a sudden savage mood. And a wraith who lay to one side and below, and who had lost both ears to frostbite, said, his head still bowed, Why do you watch us so? If you wish to know who they are who share one doom, they owned the Vicenzio's valley with their father, whose name was Albert. They sprung from one womb, and you may search through all Caina's crew without discovering in all this waste a squab more fit for the aspect than these two. Not him whose breast and shadow a single blow of the great lance of King Arthur pierced with light, nor yet Focaccia, nor this one fastened so into the ice that his head is all I can see, and whom, if you are Tuscan, you know well. His name on the earth was Sassol Mascheroni, and I, to tell you all and so be through, was Commission de Pazzi. I wait for Carlin, beside whose guilt my sins will shine like virtue. And leaving him I saw 1,000 faces discolored so by cold I shudder yet, and always will when I think of those frozen places. As we approached the center of all weight, where I went shivering in eternal shade, whether it was my will or chance or fate I cannot say, but as I trailed my guide among those heads, my foot struck violently against the face of one. Weeping, it cried, Why do you kick me? If you were not sent to wreak a further vengeance for Monteperti, why do you add this to my other torment? Master, I said, grant me a moment's pause to rid myself of a doubt concerning this one. Then you may hurry me at your own pace. The master stopped at once, and through the volley of foul abuse the wretch poured out, I said, Who are you who curse others so? And he, And who are you who go through the dead larder of Antenora, kicking the cheeks of others so hard, that were you alive you would not kick harder? I am alive, I said, and if you seek fame, it may be precious to you above all else that my notes on this descent include your name. Exactly the opposite is my wish and hope, he answered. Let me be, for it's little you know of how to flatter on this icy slope. I grabbed the hair of his dog's ruff, and I said, Either you tell me truly who you are, or you won't have a hair left on your head. And he, Not though you snatch me bald, I swear, I will not tell my name nor show my face. Not though you rip until my brain lies bare. I had a good grip on his hair. Already I had yanked out more than one fistful of it, while the wretch yelped but kept his face turned from me, when another said, Boca, what is it ails you? What the hell's wrong? Isn't it bad enough to hear you bang your jaws? Must you bark too? Now, filthy traitor, say no more, I cried, for to your shame. Be sure I shall bear back a true report of you, the wretch replied. Say anything you please, but go away. And if you do get back, don't overlook that pretty one who had so much to say just now. Here he laments the Frenchman's price. I sabuoso da duera. You can report where the bad salad is kept crisp on ice. And if you asked who else was wintering here, Beccaria, whose throat was slit by Florence, is there beside you. Gianni di Soldagne is further down, I think, with Ganelon and Tebaldello, who opened the gates of Faenza and let Bologna steal in with the dawn. Leaving him then, I saw two souls together in a single hole, and so pinched in by the ice that one head made a helmet for the other. As a famished man chews crust, so the one sinner sank his teeth into the other's nape, at the base of the skull, gnawing his loathsome dinner. Tydeus, in his final raging hour, gnawed Menalippus's head with no more fury than this one gnawed at skull and dripping gore. You there, I said, who show so odiously your hatred for that other, tell me why, on this condition, that if in what you tell me you seem to have a reasonable complaint against him you devour with such foul relish, I, knowing who you are, and his soul's taint, may speak your cause to living memory, God willing the power of speech be left to me. Notes. 3. Which bears the weight of all the steeps of hell. Literally, it is the base from which all the steeps rise. Symbolically, it is the total and finality of all guilt. 10. Those ladies of the heavenly spring, etc. The Muses. They so inspired Amphion's hand upon the lyre that the music charmed blocks of stone out of Mount Cithaeron, and the blocks formed themselves into the walls of Thebes. 28-29. Tanbernic. Pietrapana. There is no agreement on the location of the mountain Dante called Tanbernic, Pietrapana, today known as La Pagna, is in Tuscany. 32 through 33, season, gleaning, the summer. 35, the part at which they blushed, the cheeks, by extension the whole face. 41 to 61, two clamped together, Alessandro and Napoleon, Counts of Mangona. Among other holdings, they inherited a castle in the Val di Bisenzio. They seem to have been at odds on all things, and finally killed one another in a squabble over their inheritance and their politics. Alessandro was a Guelph, and Napoleon a Ghibelline. 61, him whose breast and shadow, etc. Modred, King Arthur's traitorous nephew, he tried to kill Arthur, but the king struck him a single blow of his lance, and when it was withdrawn, a shaft of light passed through the gaping wound and split the shadow of the falling traitor. 63. Boccaccia, of the Cancelliere of Pistoia. He murdered his cousin, among others, and may have been the principal cause of a great feud that divided the Cancelliere and split the Guelphs into the white and black parties. 66. Sassol Mascaroni, of the Toschi of Florence. He was appointed guardian of one of his nephews and murdered him to get the inheritance for himself. 68. Camicione de Pazzi. Alberto Camicione de Pazzi of Valdorno. He murdered a kinsman, Carlino de Pazzi, relative of Alberto. He was charged with defending the whites the castle of Patronvenia in Valdarno, but surrendered it for a bribe. He belongs therefore in the next lower circle, Antenora, as a traitor to his country, and when he arrives there his greater sin will make Alberto seem almost virtuous by comparison. 70. And leaving him. These words mark the departure from Caina to Antenora. 73. The center of all weight. In Dante's cosmology, the bottom of hell is at the center of the earth, which is in turn the center of the universe. It is therefore the center of all gravity. Symbolically, it is the focal point of all guilt. Gravity, weight, and evil are equivalent symbols on one level. They are what ties man to the earth, what draws him down. At the center of all, Satan is fixed forever in the eternal ice. The journey to salvation, however, is up from the center, once the soul has realized the hideousness of sin. 78. Against the face of one. Bocca degli Abati, a traitorous Florentine. At the battle of Monteperti, he hacked off the hand of the Florentine standard-bearer. The cavalry, lacking a standard around which it could rally, was soon routed. 107. What the hell's wrong? In the circumstances, a monstrous pun. The original is qual diavoli ti tocca, what devil touches or molests you? A standard colloquialism for what's the matter with you? A similar pun occurs in line 117, kept crisp, cool on ice. Colloquial sta fresco, to be or to remain cool, equals to be left out in the cold, to be out of luck. 116. Buoso da Guerra of Cremona. In 1265, Charles of Anjou marched against Manfred in Naples, and Buoso da Guerra was sent out in charge of a Ghibelline army to oppose the passage of one of the Charles armies, but accepted a bribe and let the French pass unopposed. The event took place near Parma. 119. Beccaria. Tesoro de Beccaria of Pavia, abbot of Vallombrosa and papal legate in Tuscany. The Florentine Guelphs cut off his head in 1258 for plotting with the expelled Ghibellines. 120. Gianni di Soldagne, a Florentine Ghibelline of ancient and noble family. In 1265, however, during the riots that occurred under the two jovial friars, he deserted his party and became a leader of the commoners, Guelphs. In placing him in Antenora, Dante makes no distinction between turning on one's country and turning on one's political party, not at least if the end is simply for power. 121. Ganelon. It was Ganelon who betrayed Roland to the Saracens. 122. Tabeldello. Tabeldello de Zambrasi of Faenza. At dawn on November 13, 1280, he opened the city gates and delivered Faenza to the Bolognese Guelphs in order to revenge himself on the Ghibelline family of the Lambertazzi, who, in 1274, had fled from Bologna to take refuge in Faenza. Tydeus. Statius recounts in the Thebaid that Tydeus killed Menalippus in battle, but fell himself mortally wounded. As he lay dying, he had Menalippus's head brought to him and fell to gnawing it in his dying rage.